Sorry.
Welcome, everyone. Today, I am being joined by Anna Caputo. Is that how you pronounce your last name? Caputo, who has such a great story. She is in the middle of her healing process, but it's such an incredible story that I wanted to share it with you because I think a lot of you are going to relate. One of her main conditions has been irritable bowel syndrome, also dealing with anxiety, and that condition can be quite debilitating. I know you've had some other things you're dealing with, and we'll ask her all about that in a minute, but she's been part of the Primal Trust program for several months now and has seen some incredible results already. Her conditions started over 20 years ago. They've kind of ebbed and flowed. And again, just another example of how it doesn't matter how long you've had issues, you can always start turning things around with nervous system regulation. So welcome, Anna. So glad to have you here today. And I want to just start by having you let us know about your story, your perfect storm, how it all began, and then in letting our audience know what diagnoses and conditions you've dealt with and symptoms, and then we'll go into what's helped and why.
Okay. So when I was 18 or 19, I woke up one day like so bloated, like I just had no idea. It was just like one day to the next. And then I went to urgent care thinking that they might be able to help me. And of course, got no help and didn't have insurance at the time. Anyway, I spent 5 years basically solid, just bloated like that and just sort of dealing and being miserable and then decreased my stress somewhat through various things and sort of leveled out for probably another like decade until my second perfect storm, which was at the beginning of COVID. I was trying to finish my graduate degree. I was pregnant and then COVID hit and all of the stress, as we all know about all of that. And at the time, I had a therapist and a psychiatrist who both said to me, "What if it's not all in your head?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like I had been told it was in my head for years. And so that was good. It was something I needed to go through, but it put me down the rabbit hole of looking for a fix. And I started investigating like every possible diagnosis and like, trying to find every doctor out there. And I just spiraled and spiraled and spiraled and spiraled, ended up with really, really bad candida. I don't know how to say that. The fungal thing.
Candidiasis? Yeah.
Yeah, that throughout my entire body and had all these symptoms which the doctors told me was impossible. And yeah. And then I don't know, did you want me to go into what brought
Yeah,
me
I would
here?
say so you had the bloating, irritable bowel, candidiasis, anything else that was going on just for people who are listening?
Um, no, not at the time. I was so debilitated that I was just basically laying in my room most of the time. My husband was doing 90% of the parenting. The candidiasis was so crazy. I had like joint pain and horrible brain fog, and like my lungs were all gunky, and I can't even remember them. I was fatigued. There was a million different things with that. And then also just my normal bowel problems had exploded back to sort of early levels. And that was basically where I was at that point.
Wow, that's really hard. I've talked to a few of you who are moms, and I know what that's like when you're in the bedroom and your kids are growing up and you're not there and mom's not available. And then there's all that stress too. And it's hard to get out of that stress cycle. If I'm sick, I need to show up, but I'm too sick to show up. I can't show up. The guilt, and it is a spiral. It's just a downward spiral. So you were in that downward spiral. Definitely COVID didn't help. Tell us about how you started to come out of that spiral and how you eventually ended up in Primal Trust and what's been happening since.
So, I hope this is okay to say, but I got to the point where I was considering suicide. Am I allowed to say that on here?
Oh yeah. I think a lot of people, we get a lot of that in our program. It gets your function and I'm so sorry that it got to that level. Absolutely. There are people here who are suffering and to that extent listening, I'm sure.
Yeah, I got to the point where I was like talking to my husband about it and looking up real ways to do it. Like traveling to another country. And anyway, and then I saw my 3-year-old and I was like, well, I have to at least know that I tried everything possible to help myself before I go through with this, or I won't be able to. And I had heard about brain training, but after trying a million things, it just seemed like this it kind of felt like this, like an abusive relationship. They're like, well, you have to not believe that you're being hit while you're being hit, or it'll never stop. Like that's kind of what it felt like to me. And I just like really didn't want to do it. Like I really didn't want to. But I was like, that I have to do everything. So I tried Gupta first, and I don't know why, I just didn't resonate with the program at all. And then I did DNRS start to finish. And I just started doing it. And I met with a gut specialist who recommended your program. And I don't know why, but for some reason I looked at your website, even though I was like dead set on doing DNRS at this point, and watched your video and signed up that day. And I like really don't remember why, but I'm so glad I did. And this program just really, really, really resonated with me in a way that the other two didn't really at all. Like it's like a complete 180 to me from the other two. And so I just started implementing the program. I have to shout out to Simona because I meet with her regularly, and she has been an enormous part of my recovery journey through this program.
And she's one of our one-on-one mentors for those who don't know who Simona is.
Yes, sorry, Simona Irwin. She is incredible and has been so pivotal in helping me. And I've just been slowly, there have been certain things that have caused me to have bigger, like, I don't know, breakthroughs. But one thing you said in one of the videos once was about expansions and contractions, and I'm trying to really allow for that to happen. And I just had like a really big contraction, and then just in the last couple of weeks had just broke into the biggest expansion I've ever had in this program so far. And I feel like I have a ways to go, but I do feel like I'm back in my life, and I'm making choices of how I want to live my life, and seeing glimpses of kind of where I'm heading. And I don't know, it's just been really beautiful.
I love this. And this is why I wanted to feature you, because we often just feature the end stage recovery stories, but I want to feature the journey in the middle. And you've been a member for just a handful of months. Tell us what physical symptoms have changed just in a handful of months since you joined Primal Trust, and using the tools, and maybe which tools you feel like were really helpful for your irritable bowel issues and things like that.
So as far as, it's funny, there's this form that you can fill out at the beginning, and then you kind of see the numbers go down. And I'm like, I don't know what symptoms have left, but I know that I think overall, just all of it has just eased, for one thing. And for another, like symptoms that used to really bother me, don't as much anymore. Like there are a couple that I've been able to sort of allow to the point of not feeling so traumatized by them anymore, which in the past I would have been like, but I want them gone. But actually it turns out if you're not traumatized by them, they actually don't matter as much. And so that has been really like an incredible transformation. I think for me, the most impactful tool of all is the pattern interrupt. The very beginning I pattern interrupted, which is like you stop yourself from, you essentially rewire your brain by like changing the way that you're functioning. And I was stopping myself from ruminating all the time. I just wasn't like endorsing that way of thinking. And that was my first big shift. And then just recently I did a sort of take on pattern interrupt by allowing my feelings to exist in my body instead of constantly like clenching and pushing them all down. And that was when I jumped out of my last contraction into this like incredible expansion. So
I love it. You're describing what I tend to see, which is the initial phase is more of a top-down pattern interrupt neuroplastic approach where we're rewiring our focus. But the deeper work, the deeper healing, it's always the somatic presencing of what is and allowing it to be there and sending messages back from our body up to the brain that what we're feeling, we're not afraid of anymore. It can exist. These emotions can exist. The symptom can exist. And it's almost like the brain reorganizes the meaning of that. And then the autonomic nervous system has a different function. So you're describing, that top-down early stage, which helped, and then another bottom-up presencing, which expanded you further so beautifully.
yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's totally true. And it's been really beautiful because I found that even like feelings that I hate, right? I kind of don't hate them anymore. Like, I'm like, oh, that feels interesting. Like it's like almost kind of like a relief to my system to be like,
Mm.
oh, you can just feel that? Great. You know? So,
I love this. This is such a, for those of you listening, the things she is saying is such a perfect example of what I like to see where people come into the program where they want it fixed and gone, but they actually have to go through this counterintuitive process of allowing and not reacting to them the same way. And then the irony is that's when symptoms start to fall away. And you're right there in the middle of that. And you're actually already noticing relief. Tell us a little bit about just that emotional set point. I mean, you wanted to end your life not too long ago. What is that like for you now?
um, it's hard to even, I mean, I'm grateful, of course, and I feel like, I don't know, it's hard to even explain. I think a lot of it's centered around, I mean, I am very much grateful for my own self, but I feel like there was so much guilt around my children, and like I had too much awareness as a parent who was absent about like attachment issues and things like that. And so I can see all of that sort of starting to heal in my oldest, especially. He's 6, and um he was 3, 4, 5 right in the middle of it all. And so being able to sort of see that corrective experience in him has been sort of also corrective in me. I don't know, just it's it's been a really interesting journey too in trying to figure out like what I want out of life. And it turns out like I've gone through a lot of different like iterations of that. But what it turns out is like I just actually think that I want to just enjoy this experience here, you know? I wanted to have a purpose. I mean, I still do, but I wanted to have a purpose, and I wanted to have a meaning, and I wanted to be something for people. And that's all sort of like flowing into something else, which is just more like being present here. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, totally. It's beautiful. You're coming, one of the biggest principles of the program is the life of the present moment, living for the now, and making that shift is such a healing, because typically when we're in that much emotional distress, we're feeling so much guilt about the past or so much fear of the future that we feel landlocked with very few ways of survival. And sometimes a part of us will come up with a solution that says, let's just end it all. This is too much. And with this program, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this gap in the present moment to form inside of you, where your consciousness doesn't just have that past guilt, upset and fearful future, but starts to also have an awareness of now. And it's like, or I could just live for right now. I could feel right now. Right now, I could shift my focus. And that gap of the now starts to increase. And then the suffering starts to decrease. And then you realize there's a life here, even if I'm still not perfectly healed yet. There's a life here. And that life force coming through, again, is one of those things I see that starts to cause that inner transformation, mind body connection coming back online, and healing, like you're noticing, where you're having improvements in your bowels, improvements in your anxiety, improvements in your overall look on life. You're the hero in the middle of your story. The hero doesn't just become the hero at the end. It is found in the middle. And that's what I see in you, and why I really wanted to feature you in this interview.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, that's yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I talk all the time about how incredibly grateful I am to have found it. I wish that I could like make everybody, I like want to make everybody take it, you know?
Speaking of that, what I'd love for you as we start to close off your story is to share what you would have said to yourself, whether it's 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, to those that resonate, this feeling of having just horrific suffering with their stomach, anxiety, maybe small kids, and feeling like, they're just, no hope. They've been to all the doctors. I know with candida issues, that can be such a hopeless journey, because if it becomes systemic, it can be very difficult for some people. So yeah, just give us some of your own wisdom. If you were to be able to impart the wisdom of the present to the past, what would it be?
I think I would want to tell myself that like, because I spent a really long time being really mad at the medical system and really society as a whole, as a whole. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to, be upset about the way that things are. But I think that like that energy, I really held on to that for a really long time. And I think that I like, if I had just realized like it's like being mad at a kid for not knowing any better, like our society is just where it is, like medicine is just where it is. And so if I had maybe realized that sooner and been able to understand that actually like the solution was within me, um, and that once I figured that out and got through it all, like the rest of it wouldn't matter as much anymore. That would have helped me to embrace my own sort of agency sooner.
Yeah, I love that. And that is one of the things I teach about with limbic system overactivity, that one of the major energies that keeps the limbic system highly overactive is the energy of blame. Blame is what the limbic system does. It's looking for a cause and effect of everything. And so if you're finding something to blame and you're keeping that energy going, you're going to keep yourself in a lot of stress chemistry. And then it becomes blaming the food, blaming this, blaming that. And it's endless blame. And letting that go is a huge leap to come out of victim consciousness, which is what you're doing and what you're describing so beautifully. And that's an empowering mindset, and it's an empowering actual biochemistry inside of us. And coming out of a lot of the guilt pathways as well. Guilt also produces a type of inflammatory biochemistry that's really harsh on the body. And the more that you come into the present moment and you're, able to like be with the kids now and recognizing that you're on this path now that will serve them and relieving some of that guilt. And I guess, some advice I'd have for you while you're in the middle of this, or for anyone else who's listening to this, I know what that's like to have a tremendous amount of mother guilt for causing all sorts of trauma and attachment wounds. Just like you, I remember my kids running into my bedroom saying, "Mommy, I need you. I need you." And I was so sick. I could hardly look at them, and I'm like, I couldn't handle their sounds. And I just was like this. I totally could not show up. And what that did to them over time, they eventually stopped coming in. And when they stopped needing me, I knew, I was like, oh, shoot, I have really done it. And I'm repeating the attachment wound of my past. And I want to say to you that what heals, though, like you can't repair that. Like that's happened. That has happened. But when these kids look at you and they watch mommy claim her power, take self-responsibility, get her smile back, that's all they need. And their healing is, mom's okay. Mom's okay now. And that might happen when they're right now at 3 and 6. It might happen in a few years. And then we even know from trauma and attachment healing that at any point in the life, when the mother comes into her power and is okay, the child, even a grown child, will relax, because that's all parents need. And so for you, I would just encourage you to keep finding and showing them that innate okayness in the present moment, and it will remodel things for them, and it will remodel their safety and attachment with you. That's what I'm trying to do. And so I just want to share that with you.
I really appreciate that. It's a huge piece of it also.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of the hardest things. It's like all of the upsets that happened, all of the years we were sick, all the things we missed out on, all of the hurt relationships. There's not only our own symptoms that we're having to make our peace with, but we're making peace with the past, and we're forgiving and allowing and having compassion and trusting that somehow all of that will rewire for a better future, and that things will heal alongside of us. So thank you for being so vulnerable today and sharing this middle step journey, the hero in the middle. You've so beautifully expressed the process.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. And I look forward to talking with you in a few months as you keep going through the program and as you keep applying these principles, especially the latest one that you've learned about really somatically allowing what is coming up, and not just, refocusing, but just feeling it all, allowing that feeling to move through your system. And there'll be a lot of things to feel, I imagine, both the physical.
I feel like my body's like, oh, you're going to let this happen? Great. And it's like pulling everything
Yeah,
I've ever felt up. Yeah.
all these little parts like, feel me too, me
Yeah.
too. What about this? And it's a little bit of a Pandora's box, but the deal is with Regulate, with our level 1 program, is we give you those tools so that you can self-regulate through the process of the inner work, which is of feeling. And
Yeah.
your capacity to feel is just going to keep expanding, especially as you keep allowing and moving through the process so beautifully like you are.
Yeah, yeah, and I can actually like feel the rewiring happening, which sounds insane, but it's kind of
No, 100%. 100%. Well, thank you so much. This has been a really great interview. And again, look forward to hearing the end of the story. Well, it's never the end. I look forward to hearing the future story.
Thank you so much.